Alright, so welcome back to a new Making Sounds with the PRO-800. Now remember that we will always start from the default patch. So if I go to 65, I know that I have nothing right there. Alright, so I want to do a keys path. So I'm going to be going oscillators all the way down, but I'm going to go all the way down in volume. And maybe on the number 2, I'm going to be doing less because I'm going to be using squares. So we have a lot of harmonics. And this one, I'm going to go brighter, right? I'm going to go higher. So it's 1 octave higher and then, same octave. It's going to sound like that. Now you can separate the oscillators with the fine tune if you want it a little bit more. I'm going to be going down it gain. Sync is going to stay off. But again, we are using squares on both. I'm going to make sure that all the other waveforms are just turned off. On this one, just turn it on and then, turn it off. So we make sure that, we have a square. And I'm telling you this because maybe you're using this with an editor and sometimes it's a little bit funny. You need to turn it on and turn it off in order to enable or disable. The square, I want them thin. So I want that type of sound. Now, if I play this sounds completely different. If I go back to default, so on default, it's just a little bit bigger. Now, if I make them narrow, it's a little bit more, narrow. And we can, work with this. Okay, so I'm going to go to the filters. I'm going to be doing some cutting off. I'm going to stay around the 300. So I am cutting a lot. And maybe resonance. Now, of course, if I play it, it's going to be super dark. I'm going to go up on this and maybe keyboard control. I'm going to leave it at half and then we will see. I'm going to do around 700, which is, I believe, the sweet spot for this one. And it's still, we get the same thing because we need to do something on the envelopes. So the attack all the way down, I'm going to be going up on the decay around 600-ish, right? And then sustain, I'm going to bring it all the way down. And I want, since these are some keys, I do want some of release. And now I need to go to the amp. See if I have release right here. I need to do some release right here. And I'm going to be doing the same on the decay. Now, if I play it, it's going to sound completely different. And this is what I want. That, organ type of sound. And all of this comes from the pulse making it narrow. Right, so if I do some chords, it's going to sound like that. Now, of course, it's a little bit too loud, maybe a little bit too bright. Maybe I can cut a lot more frequencies. Just a little bit darker. If you want less, you can do less of the envelopes. All right, but in this case, I think it's a little bit too much. Let me... maybe a little bit more, not too much, maybe a little bit less. All right, so I'm going to leave it there. Now, in terms of envelopes, as you might know, you can change the speed and the slope. Let's see what we get with different values. I'm going to stand on perf. This one needs to be on, and the other one needs to be blinking. So when you go to the number 4, is VCA envelope shape. And then VCF envelope shape. Now, by default, it's going to be slow and linear. What happens if I do slow and exponential? I'm going to keep slow and then exponential. And if I play it, this is a little bit different now. It's shorter. And for this type of sound, I guess I like it a little bit more. And I'm going to do the same to the VCA envelope. I'm going to keep tapping it, VCA envelope shape, right? So it's a slow and linear. I'm going to be changing it to slow and exponential. There we go. If I play, it's shorter. And I'm doing this because I can hold a key or maybe a chord and play on top of the chord. If it's too long, and you hold the chord and you play on the top, it's going to be a mush of, a lot of things. And on the LFO, I don't think we need to use it, but you can do pulse width modulation since we are right here. And we can do a little bit of filter modulation. I'm gonna stand around here, and I'm gonna be using, a sine wave. If I do too much, it's gonna be too much, right? So maybe just a tiny little bit. Gonna give you a little bit of movement. But it's again completely up to you. I like it, but I'm gonna leave it really low. Notice we are on 10 or even less. And now, since we did all of this, I think we can make it a little bit brighter and just open it a little bit more. Right? Now, if you don't like the LFO mod, maybe, I'm gonna turn it off. And it's a little bit more static, let's say. Right. I'm gonna be using 3 different effects, of course, just to make it, a little bit wider, a little bit of delay, and a little bit of reverb. I'm not doing anything super weird. Let's begin with the chorus. And this chorus is just a fantastic chorus, and you're gonna notice the difference right away. If I play a chord, it's gonna sound like this. Maybe I'm gonna go down in volume just a little bit. All right, so I'm gonna turn it on, and there you go. That's why you want a chorus for synths. Now this is gonna give me the dry and the wet. Your mono in and stereo out. Oops, sorry for that. Just bumped the camera with my arm. I think it's great. And, we didn't even touch it. Now, so on this one, we can go, depth all the way down, but, we're going to be pretty much killing the chorus effect. More depth, going to be more modulation. And that sounds super cool. I'm going to go down on the lag and maybe up on the rate. Maybe too much. Maybe going to stay there. All right. Maybe a little bit too much. There we go. Maybe more lag. I believe it sounds fantastic. I'm gonna leave it like it is, and I'm gonna move to the delay. On the delay, I'm going to be moving to analog, and I'm going to stay on the blue. So the blue on this pedal is going to be tape delay. And the thing number 1 is going to be the modulation depth, and the number 2 is going to be the modulation rate. Right? So right now it sounds like this. I'm going to turn it on. It sounds like that. Maybe a little bit more output because we went down in output. A little bit more mix. Maybe a little bit more feedback, just a little bit of everything, less tone, and let's do more think 1 and think 2. So since this is the tape, delay of emulation, it's going to give us more modulation. But maybe I don't want that much. We're going to see how it sounds because we'll have a lot of modulation from here. That's how it sounds. Maybe more mix. If I go up on the mix, just hear how it sounds. It's gonna sound like that. I'm gonna go less and less on the thing 1 and the thing 2. Maybe a little bit less of feedback. All right, so on the reverb side of things, this, again, just like the other one, has a lot of modes. Maybe, you know what? I'm gonna be going to the lo-fi and, just check it out. Everything is at noon. If I play it, right? Sounds fine to me. Really big reverb. Maybe too much. So I'm gonna go down the level and maybe down right here. Right. Less feedback and less mix on the delay. Okay, so that's going to be my final patch. I believe it sounds really cool. And remember that the vibe of this comes from the square and the pulse width. As soon as we change the pulse width, it's going to sound really different. Alright, in this case, for this one, again, I'm going to keep it pretty thin. Alright, so let's move on to the next patch. Alright, so let's build the second patch of this edition. I'm going to be going to, I don't know, 64 and make sure that I only have a default patch. Alright, so on this one, I want a brassy type of sound. I want a more brassy type of sound. So I'm going to be going to oscillator number 1 and oscillator number 2. Maybe the one I'm going to keep it to a little bit less. And I'm going to be using not a saw on the oscillators. I'm going to be using a triangle on this and a square on the oscillator number 1. And on the oscillator number 2, I'm going to be doing a saw for now. Now, if I play it, it's going to sound like that. Now, it doesn't sound like brass, of course. So I'm going to be going to sync so we can sync it with the number 2. Now, we could offset this one. Why not? So I'm going to stand on performance. And if you go to the number 6 and you keep tapping, you can change the mode. So I'm going to go to oscillator A, frequency mod pod, the pod mode. And right now it's going to be octaves. I'm going to be changing it to semitones. I'm going to be offsetting just a tiny little bit. Maybe I'm going to be changing it to 600-ish. Now on the oscillator number 1, we are using a square. I'm going to make it narrow and we can hear the change in tone, timbre. I'm going to be putting it around 300. Now the magic right here is going to happen on the envelopes. We need to do some cutoff and then some modulation. So on the cutoff, I'm going to stay around the 300s. I'm going to be doing a little bit of resonance, maybe 200 and something. And then the envelope amount, let's begin with 700 or 600, almost 700. See what happens. All right. Now we need to do something. So I'm going to go to the cutoff. And for now, you know what? I'm going to go to full on the keyboard control. And on the envelopes, I'm going to do a little bit of release. Since we are doing release right here, we need some release on the VCA. And you know what? The sustain, I'm going to go all the way down and decay around there. It doesn't sound like a brass right now because of the attack. I'm going to go attack around almost 200. Now it sounds a little bit more brassy. Alright, now I'm going to go to VCA, sustain all the way up, and release again, maybe a little bit more, release, wind and decay around 600, and the attack again, just like we did this one, so almost in the same value. Now when you create brassy sounds, especially with the attack, depending on how fast, the tempo of whatever is that you're playing, you need to fine-tune the attack. Because if not, it's going to be too slow. So when you play too fast, it's going to be a little bit sloppy. In this case, I'm going to do a little bit less of attack. So I can make it faster. But if you want to slow something like that, you need to play slower. Right? In this case, I'm going to be going a little bit faster. Somewhere around there. And I guess, that's the patch. Now, the oscillators, the waveform will really affect the sound. I'm just going to go to 2 saws, which is usually, how a brassy sound, or how you create a brassy type of sound, right? You get it with a saw. So if you like that, you can keep that. In this case, I'm going to stay with the triangle and the square. A little bit less width. Alright, Now, before we go to the effects section, I'm going to do a little bit of vibrato. We could do it with this, but you know, maybe I prefer to do it with the with the options we have right here. I'm going to go to the number 2, standing on performance, and we need to go to vibrato and then mount, so we can control it with the mod wheel. I'm going to go up, and if I go up on my mod wheel and I play it, it's going to be like that. It's too much. I'm going to do less. Somewhere. Maybe, 50 is fine. Now, it's too fast. I'm gonna make it slower. There we go. I believe that's fine. Now, the mod wheel is all the way up. So if I go down on the mod wheel, we get no vibrato. But if I go up, maybe it's too slow. I'm gonna go faster. Okay, so let's go to the effects section. Now let's use a little bit of overdrive. We're going to stay at noon. Now the drive all the way down, and the tone right at the middle, right at center. If I turn it on, it's going to sound like we are taking a lot of the high frequencies because of the tone. I'm going to go around 60%, and we get more high frequencies. So this is just making it sound more vintage. Which is, in this case, more compressed. If I turn it off, notice it's completely different. Alright, let's go to the chorus, and right from the start, this one is just gonna make everything better. Maybe it's a little bit too much, maybe a little bit too aggressive. I'm gonna do the tempo, so it's gonna be a little bit slower. Maybe now it's we need to go up in rate. Now let me go down in rate, somewhere around there. The depth is too much. I'm gonna be doing less and a little bit less of lag. I like it. Now the reverb is gonna just finish the whole thing. Okay, so reverb off. I'm gonna be standing on a hall. Why not? And everything is gonna be at noon. Let's see what happens. I'm gonna turn it on. And the reverb just, finishes off pretty much the whole patch. Copyright. Alright, so I guess that's going to be my patch. Now, remember of the, the oscillators? We are using on the oscillator B, we are using a saw. But if I use a saw on both oscillators, it's going to sound maybe a little bit more classic brass. Maybe that's what you want. My patch, I'm going to keep the triangle and the square, just like, we discussed previously. Alright, so that's my final patch. Remember, without the overdrive, just, both on the saw. You get 2 patches for the price of 1. And I'm going to go back to maybe no effects, so we can compare the difference. A lot of difference. This one on. Make it wider with the chorus one. And make it big with the reverb. Alright. So that's going to be, again, my final patch. Alright, so that's it on this one. Hopefully you liked all of this. And remember, if you did, to like and subscribe. And if you have the money and you want to buy me a coffee, just to say thanks, you can go to the links at the description of you have the QRs at the screen, and you have PayPal, you can go to Patreon, and you have YouTube thanks if that is your thing.